Hello friends, I'm Vidisha and I welcome you to this session. You've already done articles, haven't you? So now it's time to move on to a very important session, which is subject-verb agreement. So what is subject-verb agreement? Your subject and your verb have to agree with each other. Otherwise, your sentence will be grammatically incorrect. As we move along today's session, you'll realize what this subject-verb agreement is all about and how important it is to speak English correctly. So let's look at the objectives for today's session. We'll do a recap of what is a verb and a subject. What do we understand by subject-verb agreement? This is what we'll do in detail today. You'll learn about the usage of correct form of verb in the present tense and past tense. You'll also learn about some basic rules of subject-verb agreement, followed by a recap of today's session. So let's get started with understanding what a verb and a subject is. Remember your session on verbs. A verb is a word used primarily to indicate a type of action, such as to fly or to wish, though it may also be used to indicate a general state of existence, such as to live. There are other verbs also, such as am, is. These show your existence. What is a subject? A subject of a sentence is the part about which something is being said. For example, the boy is playing with a ball. So who are we talking about? We're talking about the boy. Therefore, boy is the subject. There are some basic rules to make your subject agree with your verb. So what are these rules? Let's take a look. Singular subjects need singular verbs and plural subjects need plural verbs. It's easy to know whether a subject is singular or plural. For example, if you say Ram, that means the subject is singular. But the word they conveys plural subject. So what are singular verbs? Verbs such as am and is are important singular verbs which show the existence of a singular subject. And action verbs such as sits, eats are singular verbs. Are you surprised by this? I'm sure you are. Now what you've learned since you were little children is that pen is singular, and when you add s to the word pen, it becomes plural. So pens is plural and pen is singular. That's correct, of course, but this applies to nouns. For verbs, the rule is the opposite. Verbs with s in the end are singular. So sits, eats, breathes, drinks, reads, all these are correct. These are singular verbs, not plural verbs. The second rule, of course, is that plural subject needs plural verbs. And what are plural verbs? Plural verbs are verbs such as were, are, and will, and action verbs such as eat, sit, and laugh. Are you clear now about singular and plural verbs? Let's take a look at some examples. My brother is a doctor. Who is the subject of this sentence? That's right, brother. And is brother singular or plural? Brother is singular. Therefore, is the correct verb to use. My sisters are mathematicians. Who are we talking about? We're talking about my sisters. Is the word sisters singular or plural? Correct. The noun sisters is plural. Therefore, the correct verb would be a plural verb, which is are. Sita is dancing. We're talking about one subject here. Therefore, is the correct verb to use. The boys are dancing. Now here the subject is plural. Therefore, we'll use a plural verb are. Now in these examples, brother and Sita are singular nouns. Therefore, they will take singular verbs such as is. Whereas sisters and boys are plural. So plural verb are is used with them. Is it clear to you now? Let's move on then. Singular versus plural. When you say the person stands, what subject are we talking about? Is the subject singular or plural? Correct. Person means one. Therefore, singular subject. So, which verb will be used for singular subject? That's right. We'll use a singular verb, which is stands. And remember the rule? A verb, an action verb with S in the end is singular. Let's look at an example of plurals. The people stand. When we are talking about people, we are referring to a plural subject. Therefore, we'll use the verb stand because stand is a plural verb. Great. Right, friends. So when we say he, she, everyone or dog, we're referring to singular third persons. Notice how the word everyone is to be considered a singular subject. Whereas when we say they, dogs, apples, then we are referring to plural subjects. Let's now take a look at the verb to be in the present tense. For example, I am going to the market. In which tense is this sentence? Correct. This sentence is in the present tense. So therefore, we have used the verb am. If I said I will be going to the market, that means I'm talking of the future tense. The next example is she is going to the party. So the word is conveys that we're talking about present tense. They are going to the function. So they is a plural subject and it will take up a plural verb are. So here we're talking about present tense in terms of third person. If you've noticed, these three examples follow the sequence of first person, second person and third person. I am going to the market, first person. She is going to the party, second person. And they are going to the function, third person. So I am the subject and the verb used. She is is again the subject and the verb used, and they are is the last subject and the verb used here. Let's now take a look at the verb to be in the past tense. I was studying yesterday because I had an exam today. When we say I was studying yesterday, that means I'm talking of the past tense. Therefore, the verb was conveys that I am talking about the past tense. She was studying yesterday because she had an exam today. So since we are talking about the past tense and a second person, we will use the verb was. She was studying yesterday. Third example is they were studying yesterday because they had an exam today. Here we are referring to plural subject they, which is the third person, and we will use the verb were to convey past tense. Is it clear to everybody now? Let's now go through some common rules with respect to various subjects and the verbs that they will take. For example, the first one is with I, you must always use a singular verb, but no verbs with S in the end. So you cannot say I eats, although I is singular, but you have to use I eat. For you must use a plural verb, and of course no verbs with S in the end. You eat. You sleep. You are. Now with he, she and it, you must remember to use singular verbs. That includes verbs with S in the end. For example, he eats. She drinks. These are all the correct verbs to use for he, she and it. For we, you must always use a plural verb, and that of course means no verbs with S in the end. So we eat this food. We drank this water. Now for they, you must always use a plural verb and no S's in the end. They went to the park, not they went through the park. That would be incorrect. So if you've noticed, the main exception to this is I, where you have to use singular verbs but no verbs with S in the end. And for you, although you is a singular subject, but it will take up plural verbs. No S in the end though. So remember these two as the exceptions. Let's now do some exercises. There are some exercises given in your workbooks. If you look at the first one, what you have to do is fill in the blanks with the correct verb. So read these carefully and listen carefully. Remember the rules that you've been taught and choose the correct option. Sentence A. The price of these jeans dash reasonable. And your options are is or are. Do you think it will be the price of these jeans is reasonable? Or will it be the price of these jeans are reasonable? B. The books borrowed from the library dash on my desk. And the options are is and are. I'll repeat the sentence. The books borrowed from the library dash on my desk. Will it be is or are? Sentence C. The boy who won the 2 medals dash a friend of mine. The options are is or are. The boy who won the 2 medals dash a friend of mine. Is or are. The next sentence is the famous singer and composer dash arrived. The options are has or have. The famous singer and composer dash arrived. Has arrived or have arrived. Next sentence is collecting matchboxes dash one of his favorite pastimes. Is or are. I'll repeat the sentence. Collecting matchboxes dash one of his favorite pastimes. Is it is or are? The quality of the candies dash poor. Is or are. The quality of the candies dash poor. Is or are. The next sentence is neither his father nor his mother dash cricket. Is it play cricket or plays cricket? Neither his father nor his mother play cricket or plays cricket. I'm sure you all did very well. Let's look at the exercise solutions now. Sentence A. The price of these jeans is reasonable. Why? Because what are we talking about? Are we talking about the jeans as the main subject or the price? That's correct. We're talking about the price. So those of you who identified price as the main subject have got the correct answer. Whereas those who identified jeans as the subject will have the wrong answer because price is singular and jeans is plural. So if you've written the price of these jeans is reasonable, that's the correct answer. The next answer is the books borrowed from the library are on my desk. Why are? Because we are talking about the books. The next sentence is the boy who won the 2 medals is a friend of mine. Is because we are talking about the boy. The boy is singular, therefore is. Sentence D. The famous singer and composer has arrived. Although we're talking about 2 things here, singer and composer, these are the qualities of a single person. So the subject of this sentence is singular. Therefore, it will take up singular verb has. Let's look at the next answer. Collecting matchboxes is one of his favorite pastimes because it is a single pastime that we're talking about. The quality of candies is poor. Quality is a singular subject, although candies is plural, but the real subject is quality. Therefore, is the correct verb. Next sentence. Neither his father nor his mother play cricket. It won't be plays cricket, but play cricket. Now, of course, as you know, there is a basic rule that a singular subject will take up a singular verb. and the plural subject will take up plural verb. However, there are some other basic rules of subject-verb agreement which will help you to make your sentences grammatically correct. Let's take a look at these rules. The pronouns anyone, everyone, someone, no one, and nobody are always singular. I'll repeat these pronouns. Anyone, everyone, someone, no one, and nobody are always singular, and therefore they require singular verbs. Let's take up an example. Somebody has left her purse. Now, if we say somebody have left her purse, that would be incorrect because we've used the pronoun somebody. Therefore, we have to use has, which is a singular verb. Similarly, everyone has done his or her homework. So, an easy way to remember this is that pronouns with one or body at the last end are supposed to be considered singular. So anyone, everyone, someone, no one, nobody, somebody, these are always singular. Let's look at the next rule now. Some pronouns such as all and some are singular or plural depending on what they are referring to. So if they are attached to a noun which is plural, then we'll use a plural verb. But if they are attached to a noun which is singular, that means we'll use a singular verb. Let's look at an example. Some of the beads are missing. What are we referring to? Correct, we are referring to the beads. Now, beads are plural. Therefore, we'll consider the subject to be plural and we'll use a plural verb. The next example would be some of the water is gone. Water is singular. Therefore, we'll use is and not are. On the other hand, there is one pronoun none that can be either singular or plural, again depending on what it is referring to. For example, none of you claims responsibility for this incident. Here we are talking about none of you and we are referring to a second person. Therefore, we'll use claim as the plural verb. We won't use claims. None of the students has done their homework. Here we are talking about students, which is plural. When we attach none to a plural subject, we have to use have done their homework. We can't say has done their homework, can we? Some pronouns are particularly troublesome. Everyone and everybody certainly feel like more than one person, but they are always to be considered singular. Now, even the word each has to always be considered singular and therefore it will take up a singular verb. For example, everyone has finished his or her homework, or each one of the students is responsible for doing his or her work in the library. Don't let the word students confuse you. The subject is each and each is always singular. phrases such as together with or as well as, and the third one is along with. They are not the same as and, although they function as a conjunction, but phrases such as together with, as well as, and along with are not the same as and, even though they are conjunctions. These must be treated as singular subjects. Let's take an example. The mayor, as well as his brother, is going to prison. Even though common sense says we're talking about two people, but since as well as has been used, we will treat it as a singular subject, and therefore we'll use is and not are. Another example would be the mayor and his brothers. In this case, because they're joined with the help of and, they will be treated as plural subject, and therefore we'll say the mayor and his brothers are going to jail and not is going to jail. Is the difference between the two clear? Right, let's get going with the next rule. The pronouns either and neither are singular and they require singular verbs, even though they seem to be referring in a sense to two things. For example, neither of the two traffic lights is working. Not neither of the two traffic lights are working, but neither of the two traffic lights is working. Another example, which shirt do you want for Christmas? Either is fine with me. Because you've used either, you will use is as the verb, not are. The exception to this is that in informal writing, neither and either sometimes take a plural verb. When is it? When these pronouns are followed by a prepositional phrase beginning with of. This is particularly true of interrogative constructions. Let's look at an example. Have either of you two clowns read the assignment? Now, when we say have either of you two clowns, there is a prepositional phrase beginning with of. Therefore, in informal writing, neither and either can take plural verb. In this case, it is have. Have either of you two clowns read the assignment? Let's take another example. Are either of you taking this seriously? Here again, we are using either, but because there is a prepositional phrase beginning with of, therefore we'll use are and not is. Is it clear to everyone? Right. Let's move on to the next rule. The next basic rule is that when nor or is used, the subject which is closer to the verb determines the number of the verb. That is, the closer subject will determine whether the subject is to be considered plural or singular. Now, whether the subject comes before or after the verb doesn't matter. It's the proximity that determines the number. Let's make it more clear with the help of an example. Either my father or my brothers are going to sell the house. I'll repeat this sentence. Either my father or my brothers are going to sell the house. Now in this case we have used or, haven't we? So we will look at which subject comes just before the verb. the subject that comes just before the verb is, that's right, brothers. And is brothers singular or plural? Correct. Brothers is a plural subject. Therefore, we'll use are and not is. Let's reverse the order of the subjects. And this time we'll say, neither my brothers nor my father is going to sell the house. So can you see how, because just before the verb we have spoken father. Father is a singular subject. Therefore, we follow it by a singular verb, is. Is it clear now? Let's look at another example. Are either my brothers or my father responsible? Now we have used or in this sentence, haven't we? Let's look at where the verb occurs. The verb has to occur in the beginning of the sentence because it is an interrogative sentence. Therefore, let's look at the subject closest to the verb. The subject closest to the verb is brothers, and brothers are, that's right, brothers are plural, therefore we'll use are. Let's look at another example. What if we said, is either my father or my brothers responsible? Once again, it is an interrogative sentence and or has been used. So let's look at where the verb occurs. The verb occurs in the beginning of the sentence because it is an interrogative sentence. So which subject comes near to the verb? It's father. Father is singular. Therefore, we'll use is and not are. I'm sure these examples have made things very clear to you. Let's move on to the next rule. Now, sometimes the words there and here are given in sentences, but never get confused with them. They are never to be the subjects. For example, there are 2 reasons for this. What is the subject here? The subject here is reasons and not the word there. And since reasons is plural, therefore we'll use are. Let's look at another example. There is no reason for this. Once again, we've used there in the sentence. But like the rule says, we must never treat it as the subject. The real subject is correct. It's reason. And is reason singular or plural? That's right. Reason is singular. Therefore, we'll use is. Let's look at another example. Here are 2 apples. What is the subject here? The subject is apples. And is apples singular or plural? That's right. Apples is a plural subject. Therefore, it will take up are and not is. Let's look at the next rule now. Now, in the present tense, when you're talking about a third person singular subjects such as he, she or it, we use verbs with s endings. Other verbs do not add s endings. Let's take up an example. He loves to work in night shifts. So who are we talking about? We're talking about third person he. He is a singular subject and therefore we use a verb with an s ending, loves. Let's see another example now. She hates to get up early in the morning. Who are we talking about? Correct, we're talking about she. Since she is a third person singular subject, we use the verb with an s ending, hates. They love to go to a picnic on a Sunday. Now here We're talking about third person, but we're not referring to singular subject. We are referring to a plural subject. Therefore, we don't take up a verb with an S ending. We say, they love to go to a picnic on a Sunday. I hope things are very clear after this exercise. Let's look at another rule now. Sometimes modifiers will get between a subject and its verb. But these modifiers must not confuse the agreement between the subject and the verb. Let's take up an example. The mayor who has been convicted along with his 4 brothers is finally going to jail. We will not say are finally going to jail because we will not allow the modifier to confuse us. We are mainly talking about the mayor. And remember the rule about along with? Whenever we are using along with, we will consider the subject to be singular and we'll use singular verb is. Right friends, this brings us to the end of today's session. So let's quickly recap what we did today. We started off by remembering what a verb was. What is a verb? Yes, you all have it right. A verb is a word which is used primarily to indicate a type of an action, such as to fly or to wish, though it may even be used to indicate a general state of existence with the help of verbs such as is, was, or are. And what is the subject? The subject of a sentence is the part about which something is being said. For example, if I say the boy is playing with a ball, who is the subject here? It's the boy. We learnt a basic rule that a singular subject requires a singular verb and a plural subject will take up a plural verb. Now what are singular verbs? You even went through that. Singular verbs are verbs such as is, am, or action verbs such as sits, eats. Examples of plural verbs will be were, are, will, and action words such as eat, sit, or laugh. Today you looked at some basic rules for subject-verb agreement. The first one was the pronouns anyone, everyone, someone, no one, and nobody are always singular and therefore they require a singular verb. For example, somebody has left her purse. The next rule was that some pronouns such as all and some are singular or plural depending on what they are referring to. For example, if you say some of the beads, that means we're talking about some of plural subject. Some of the beads are missing. Whereas when we say some of the water, we'll use is gone. However, there is one pronoun none that can either be singular or plural. For example, you may say none of you claim responsibility for this incident. Or you can say none of the students have done their homework. So if you can see through these two examples, you can either treat it as singular or plural depending on the context in which you're talking. Another rule is that some pronouns are particularly troublesome. For example, everyone and everybody. They do feel like they're more than one person that we're talking about, but we always have to treat them as singular subjects. Even the word each, it is always singular. Hello and welcome to today's session. I'm Vidisha and I'm going to be conducting this session of story time. You've already covered many sounds in your accent sessions by now. So how are you doing with your practice? Are you able to listen carefully to the words that you speak and implement what you have learnt to the words that you're speaking? You've already covered many vowel sounds. So what are the target sounds for today's session? They are sounds which you have already done. That is the ow, oi, ew, w, and ew sounds. You've already done them, haven't you? So have you been practicing? Let's see how far you've gone. I'll now take you through the aims and objectives of today's session. We'll start with a recap of the previous sessions covering the ow. So happy learning and have lots of fun. Goodbye for today.